and welcome to MLW Confusion. I'm your host, Rob Cameron, bringing you all that you may or may not need to know about Major League Wrestling and its television programming. This week we got MLW action, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. Blood and Thunder was this past weekend at the time of this recording. Big show with lots of stuff going on, and of course we're going to find out who Salina de la Renta's baby daddy is. But first, we have the news. We have two announcements coming out of Summer of the Beasts in New York City. That is August 29th at the Melrose Ballroom, returning to New York City proper. Yeah. Party. They haven't been in New York in quite some time. I'm kind of excited for their return. I always liked the Melrose Ballroom, but glad to see MLW tour, of course. However, we are getting ourselves some Opera Cup action, second round action, as spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Blood and Thunder, plug your ears real quick, as Kenta will be battling Akira. This match has the potential to be a show stealer, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it is a pleasure to see Kenta in an MLW ring, and Akira is looking to rebuild momentum after taking the L to Minoru Suzuki at Blood and Thunder. Of course, we'll talk about that a bit more later on in the show. But that was not for the Opera Cup standings. This match is, so Akira is going to have to make sure he puts himself together to continue on in the tournament. It has also been announced that Stardom's Hanako will be coming to MLW for Summer of the Beasts as well. She is the tall wonder tower of Stardom, looking to make an impact in the featherweight division. No opponent announced yet, but I assume there is a 1 in 3 chance that it's going to be Janai Kai. However, we will find out later on, probably closer to the taping date, August 29th, of course, New York City, Melrose Ballroom. So there is our news for the week. Let's just get ready for it. Blood and Thunder. This is the last bit of MLW until, I believe, August 10th. They're going nearly a month in between shows. And if you pay attention to the Urban Wrestling Network, which this podcast is a part of, and I'm a regular contributor to the YouTube program, we've stated numerous times that, if Fusion doesn't come back, they need to do something to bridge the gap in between these events, because there tends to be next to radio silence in terms of new content. And especially in this particular situation where we got about a month in between shows, MLW has got to put something together to keep our appetites wet, and keep us excited for the product, because dream matches are all well and good, but unfortunately, dream matches are kind of everywhere in the independent scene, or at least with the indies that have any sort of money. So, I don't know, I'm hoping for good things to come out of this. However, Blood and Thunder, we are back in St. Petersburg. It is a nice little coliseum they got there. I do thoroughly enjoy the setup they have for that. Joe Dombrowski, Christian Cole welcome us to this show. Looks like we are going to start off with some Opera Cup action. First round, MLW Tag Team Champion Okamura battles the upstart, the Ring of Honor television champion as of this here taping, Atlantis Jr. Of course, MLW doesn't acknowledge the role Atlantis has been on outside of the MLW ropes, which, I mean, at a certain level, is understandable, but, I would also make the argument that there is a good chance that Ring of Honor is, thanks to being under the umbrella of AEW, is, a much larger company, and probably, wouldn't be bad to mooch off of it a little bit. But hey, what do I know? I am not a professional wrestling promoter. I am just a semi-professional neckbeard. So we'll ignore that stuff. But we're going to start the match off. We got respect. This is a generational clash, and we're starting it off the right way here with a handshake, extended feeling out process, feeling what each other can do. And in the process of this, Atlantis takes over for a hot minute, sending Okamura outside. Okamura dodges a baseball slide, baseball dropkick type maneuver, however, does not dodge the tilt-a-whirl backbreaker outside the ring. However, Okamura does get to take over after Atlantis makes the rookie mistake, even though he's like 6 years in the business, of clotheslining the ring post. That never goes well, ladies and gentlemen. This allows Okamura to kind of show a little bit of an aggressive streak that we haven't really gotten to see much out of him. However, we get back in the ring, and Atlantis takes this opportunity to really kind of like fire up. We get some back and forth action with Atlantis getting a 2 count off a thrust kick. Okamura counters with a modified Tower of London style cutter. That only gets 2, followed up by a Michinoku driver number 2, only gets a 2 count off of that. Atlantis fires up Tope Suicida. Okamura counters La Atlantida. Excuse me, that's a mouthful when I'm going this darn quick. And I'll try to slow down. Maybe I should do that. Maybe you can understand me a bit better. But the modified torture rack that Atlantis Jr. uses is La Atlantida. Gets countered out of that into a roll-up. Okamura rolls into a cross arm breaker at that point, showing some ground game. Atlantis has no choice, but he gets to the rope before he has to tap out. Atlantis hits a modified Blue Thunder out of that, followed up by a Frog Splash, and that gets the 3 count. Your winner, advancing to the second round, Atlantis Jr. And my thoughts on this match. This match was a really good match. Like I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't 100% what I would expect out of it, because Okamura really has not had a proper opportunity to shine in a solo setting. Like, he has been thoroughly engrossed in Cozy Max, then he did the Team MLW in War Games, but we've really not had the opportunity to see like what he can do kind of on his own and when he's not in a supporting role. And it turns out the dude's good. I mean, I didn't really doubt that he wasn't good, but like up to this point, like he's just always kind of like shown to be kind of a hanger-on for Satoshi Kojima, rather than an equal. And this match shows that, I think he could very much be an equal. Shows respect to the youngin after the match as well. So, very good match, a solid opener, and kind of a sleeper match of the night. Like, I won't say this was the match of the night. I will not actually say that. I think our next match will take that. But like, really good match actually. So if you're not familiar with Okamura's work, here you go. Totally worth it. From here, Joe Dombrowski goes to the Tron area, the stage, if you will, to talk to the Balmaye Fight Club, Mr. Thomas, Alex Kane, and they discuss what it means to be facing each other in the first round of the Opera Cup. Is that going to cause any dissension? Is there any hard feelings about this? And Kane does most of the talking with Mr. Thomas interjecting, and basically just points out that like they are the Balmaye Fight Club. They're bound to fight, and if there's no one left to fight, they'll fight each other. And Mr. Thomas rightly notes that, if you spend the weekend with him, you kind of want to fight anyway, which I believe. But they note that, there's no hard feelings. Like, they could go after any titles they want to, but right now it's about the Opera Cup, which Kane is going to win legitimately, or Mr. Thomas will, and Kane will carry the cup for a year, and that's fine with him too. So it doesn't look like we're going to get much dissension in the ranks, but we'll see how that goes. The next event, August 10th. Following this, Salina de la Renta is plotting her revenge against Cesar Duran. She is about to send Jesus Rodriguez out on an errand. He walks off stage. When the Lucha Grubens grab her, she hollers. She starts struggling. When Cesar's like, no, calm down. Wait for it. And then you hear a commotion, and Jesus has been attacked by Contra. Cesar's like, hey, like, we got our issues, but Contra is also going to be a big issue for both of us, and for the family's sake, we really need to pool our resources together and join up, and then worry about our squabbles later, and then just kind of, they run off to safety. The ambulance for our three stages of destruction is pulling up to the arena. I would have thought, like, that's how you start a party, because, professional wrestling event, people get injured there, but, what do I know? Just showing up now, though. But, more importantly, showing up right now, next match is also first round Opera Cup action, as the fire starter, the modern man in black, He is born to die. Crist takes on Filthy Tom Lawler. Mr. Saint Laurent is on commentary. Kind of, sort of. It takes forever for his mic levels to work, which isn't necessarily a horrible thing, but it really doesn't look good from a production standpoint for that to happen. But, moral victory, I guess. But really, before the match even starts, Crist just falls out of the sky. Like, he's not in the camera shot. He just falls down into Tom Lawler. Assume we got a tope con hilo or some sort of maneuver coming off there. He just literally just falls out of the sky, and I thought it was hilarious. Follows it up with a modified ring apron 619 and an acai moonsault. This is all before the bell rings. They finally enter the ring. Bell rings. Big crossbody followed by a Russian leg sweep. That Russian leg sweep kind of moves into a modified octopus stretch, which I think is a bad idea when you're working with someone is well-rounded with Tom Lawler. I would not want to get in any sort of submission game with him. That just sounds like a terrible idea. Speaking of which, STO by Lawler on the ring apron, followed by an overhead Kimura lock into a backbreaker on the arena floor. It was like a crazy series of events, and if no one's ever told you, of course, the ring apron is the hardest part of the ring, ladies and gentlemen. Back in the ring, Lawler removes his jorts and begins choking Crist with them. We could finally hear MSL, for better or for worse. Tom Lawler kind of takes the next few minutes to really dominate Crist, just working him all over with the ground and pound. Crist makes a comeback, though, and just catches Tom Lawler out of the air. Tom's going for a drop kick and catches him with a power bomb. We get a modified muscle buster, though, by Tom Lawler. Gets a 2 count off of that. Lawler goes for the submission with the rear naked choke. But they're still standing, so I guess maybe it's just a sleeper hold. But Crist refuses to give up, so Tom just chucks him over his head, sleeper suplex, rolls into a crossface off that. However, Crist, again, refuses to give up, hits a springboard cutter for 2. Looks to be making some sort of comeback when he goes to the top rope, but Tom Lawler catches him up top, locks in a Kimura lock, just standing on the top rope in a Kimura, and then just flips him over his head with that. Freaking super Kimuraplex. WTF, matey. Pun. I'm not even sure if that pun was intended. It was just trying to keep me from swearing because, dude, that was nuts. That Kimura super play. And even then, he doesn't even let go of it. He still has it locked on, turned into a formal Kimura lock. And Crist at this point, has no choice but just to tap out, advancing to the second round, Filthy Tom Lawler. Freaking amazing match. Crist showed out, and if I'd had my way, I don't know if I said this in any of the other episodes, because let's be realistic, I don't listen to these a whole lot after they're out in the ether. But Crist is a dude I would have taking this tournament if I was booking it, just to say hey, Jake Crist is here, and he can burn this mother down. Obviously, though, I am not the booker. And even I guess if I was making business booking decisions, I wouldn't do it. But the fan in me of just certified bangers loves Jake Crist and just love to see him have this. I guess this was a proper coming out party for him. But just to love to see him get a moment properly in the sun. However, we're not done in the ring yet. It's Tom Lawler wants everyone to know he can't hear them because his ears are a wee bit cauliflowered. When Stingray himself, Paul Walter Hauser, interrupts, basically, you can't hardly hear him. It's echoey, the mic's low. They do adjust the mic, but it's still pretty darn echoing. But ultimately, he runs down Lawler and calls him a coward, because because Lawler attacked Walter Hauser from behind with a steel chair. So in a move of epic intelligence, I guess, challenges Tom Lawler to his own wheelhouse, an MMA cage match with Mr. Saint Laurent banned from the arena. Tom Lawler accepts, and Walter Hauser notes that this is going to be a role of a lifetime, as Hauser is going to do an Oscar-worthy performance as a professional wrestler, and Tom Lawler is going to give an Oscar-worthy performance as Paul Walter Hauser's bitch, complete with a definition card on screen, which I did think that was funny. But otherwise, I felt the promo was weird, and I don't Like, I don't... I think it's a terrible idea to meet Tom Lawlor in his wheelhouse when you are not, like, an athlete whatsoever. I mean, yes, Stingray has done some professional wrestling, obviously, and is surprisingly good at it. There's a big difference between doing a battle riot and meeting Tom Lawlor in a cage. So, what do I know? It's a family show. That's what Tom Lawlor wants us to know anyway. Following this, we get a Contra promo. Mads Krugger talks about burning down Second Gear Crew, putting Manders in a grave, which thoroughly promote that. And now a grave awaits Matthew Justice tonight. Our next match is non-Opera Cup action, finally, as Akira gets a dream opponent in Minoru Suzuki. With Suzuki is Akira Kwan. Unfortunately, we don't get any Kazeniare for music, and that did not make the peasants rejoice whatsoever. We get an extended period of hold trading. We got catch wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Real graps, if you will. However, Suzuki baits Akira into the ropes and then locks in an arm breaker in the ropes. They start fighting outside the ring. And by fighting, I mean Suzuki just kind of decimates Akira. Climbs up on the announce table, looking to do a gotch-style piledriver on the table. With that, the referee kind of gets involved, and Akira Kwan attacks while the ref's back is turned because ref bias. In the ring, Suzuki demands to be hit, as he is wont to do, and Akira responds. They end up jockeying for position, like real fight almost looking. Followed up with a small package by Akira. Akira catches Suzuki in a heel hook in the ropes, kind of like a inverse of what happened earlier with Suzuki catching Akira. But this is like the first time Suzuki actually looks like he's hurt. However, Akira Kwan provides a distraction and attacks Akira, and gets like a flapjack for his effort, landing face first on the arena floor. That couldn't have felt good. Back in the ring, Akira hits a batch of strikes and a shotgun dropkick into the corner. Top rope senton mostly connects. Kinda, maybe, but dude gets a 2 count off of that, so whatever. Akira then gets knocked the F out by strikes from Suzuki. Big forearm primarily is the culprit, but gets up and flips off Suzuki to eat one more forearm and just drops. Though he wakes up enough to hit a reverse STO and German suplex for a 2 count. Suzuki drop steps, run to the ropes, and locks in a rear naked choke. And when it just looks like Akira's going to pass out, Suzuki transitions it into a stalling Gotch-style pile driver to get the 3 count. Like, dude just literally just sat midair with Akira for a little bit and before dropping him on his head. Following this, Suzuki continues the assault on Akira. Akira Kwan joins in a little bit later on. Finally, Satoshi Kojima comes out to make the save. Damage is done, though. I enjoyed this match as well. This one was a bit slower. I would have liked to see more damage done to Suzuki. He did spend the most of the match no selling to almost a comical degree. They did try to make Akira look tough by having him get knocked out several times, but continuing to fight back, only to be put down by the pile driver. And a mixed bag in terms of my feelings of this match. Obviously, Suzuki needs a win, but I also feel like with the Opera Cup rolling around, Akira probably could have used the win too. But that being said, for the most part, you're not going to lose anything by losing to Minoru Suzuki. He is a certified legend and just all-around badass. So, I can't complain too terribly much about that. Complaining, though, will come a wee bit later. And by a wee bit later, I mean practically now. We get a recap video highlighting the entire history of Cesar Duran and Salina de la Renta. Each time they've kidnapped each other, up to the revelation that Cesar is Salina's papa, now to the most recent development of Salina de la Renta being 5 months pregnant. So crazy go nuts. This leads to our baby daddy reveal, and they milk it for all it's worth. Like, they go back and forth. It looks like she's getting ready to announce it when Bad Dude Tito shows up, like the I would say betting favorite to be the dad. And Cesar's like, "Is it you?" And Tito's like, "No, dude, I just wanted a front row seat to watch the fireworks." Like, practically has popcorn in his hand ready to go. Again, get ready to do it. And Mr. St. Laurent shows up, and everyone's kind of gagging at the thought of him being the daddy, but luckily, like, no one is. And his was like a complete waste of time outside of like the initial joke that he could have been the dad. Like, the rest of it was a waste of time because like he was shystering like DNA tests for a baby that hadn't been born yet. And yes, I know you can do a DNA test on a child that hasn't been born yet, but like, no one likes to do that because it's very invasive and not exactly the safest route to take. But it's okay because MSL was BSing anyway and was trying to sell off a COVID test. But that leads us to the real baby daddy. Salina's like, "It is him," and points like over Cesar's shoulder. He like Cesar like doesn't believe anything, like doesn't believe anyone's like back there, and and like, "What, you're saying I'm the father? That's stupid." Like, "No, him." And like, turns out she is pointing to the Lucha goon behind Cesar standing guard, who removes his mask to put, as Christian Cole put it, the most handsome man alive, the most handsome man he's ever seen. And like, okay, I'll let him have that because dude looks good. But yeah, going back to the point. So like, one of Cesar's bodyguards what is the baby daddy, and it's like the same one they even show in like the retro footage of the history of like of Salina like escaping captivity. Like, she escaped with a bodyguard of Cesar Duran who kind of like turned against him, was a mole. And like, so there's our callback to that. Cesar like has a heart attack as Salina and her baby daddy then proceed to like make out in the ring. And so yeah, that was a thing. That was certainly a thing. And like, it had its moments of entertainment building up to this point, and then the reveal where at a certain level, like, I get it, like the most handsome man in the world is actually like Salina's IRL baby daddy. But like, they've really not done anything to establish him as an on-screen character, because he's not an on-screen character. Like, he's filled in as a kind of a body double as needed. He's not a worker, to my knowledge, but is really just kind of like stood in when they need an extra body that doesn't have to get physical. And so like, and my problem with this is like, okay, so you got the acorn in there that did sprout a little bit, like, I get it, but like, what does this mean in a professional wrestling context? Like, we're kind of getting to the point where the Salina Cesar feud is moving into its own little bubble, which, I mean, if it's done all right, like, it's not a horrible thing, but like, how does this translate to a professional wrestling context is my question. Scores are usually settled in the ring, and it's already enough that like, we have this feud between two not wrestlers that have just kind of moved away from the ring. Like, so like, neither of them are at this point competing to see who the better promoter is. Neither of them are fighting for their livelihood. Like, it's just like almost like the Codyverse. Like, it's just off on its own, except unlike the Codyverse, where at least you got Cody had matches, like, we've just stopped doing anything in ring. And so like, if Cesar's going to get like the one up on anything, like, how does that translate to in-ring action? Like, and as it kind of like stands right now, like, there isn't a whole lot to either roster. Like, there isn't a whole lot of workers in Azteca Lucha at the moment, and there's not a lot of workers in Promociones Dorada at the moment. Like, yeah, there's a couple like rotating folks that have been coming in, but like, there's no stable folks. So like, we have this reveal, and there's not going to be a whole lot like that's going to translate into, and that's my biggest complaint. Where like, so like, booking sense wise, like, it really did need to be like a worker with the company, even if you're debuting someone new. Like, you didn't have to go crazy like I was with it and say it's Mads Krugger, but like, again, you had like a Bad Dude Tito right there, and then you have a proxy for Cesar to be like, "I'll kill him," and then like, he can hire out all these hitman to take Tito out in the ring. And you can't do that with how they've gone creatively at this time. So, let's take a breath. Maybe we'll calm down for a moment. Get yourself an energy drink. We'll be back. Un momento. If you're like me, sometimes you need a pick-me-up to get you through the day. I drink Ray's Energy for that pickup. Ray's comes in a bunch of different flavors, and more recently Italian Ice, which is great, by the way. And it contains no sugar, so there's no crash after you drink it. And, really, best of all, if you go through me and go to wetrepsports.com, use my code CASS, you get 15% off your order. So, also, be like Cass, drink Ray's Energy. All right, we are back. It is time for the 3 stages of destruction. It is going to be in this order, which they didn't announce very well until match time. First, blood match, followed up by a street fight, no rules match, and last, if need be, an ambulance match, which we've seen the ambulance backstage at this point. Mads Krugger feuding with Matthew Justice. Hopefully this is the last time we get these two guys together. They had a banger in Chicago, and hopefully this is how the feud comes to a head. First blood match, start things off, as I said, and starts off hot. They are battling each other tooth and nail already, and Krugger's bleeding. Yeah, Krugger is bleeding already. Match is still going on. The ref's not called for the bell. Commentary does try to kind of cover it up, a la WCW, where no, this match can't end on a scratch. It can't end on just a small little cut. You actually have to bleed. But still, it's a terrible look to watch a guy, bleeding already in a first blood match, and no one cares. But then again, my strategy in first blood matches would always just to be grow my fingernails out and start gouging away as well. So, I mean, what do I know? We go outside and chairs are starting to come into play, chairs everywhere. So, here's the story of this match. Lots of clubbering with weapons. Yes, there are going to be high spots, but for the most part, it's just a lot of slow plotting. I'm going to hit you with the chair. I'm going to hit you with this ladder. I'm going to hit you with this chair again. I'm going to do something else with this chair that's almost hitting you. And that's kind of where we're going. We do get the Sendai Death Squad actually coming in. There's a barbed wire chair getting used at this point on both the Sendai, and then used on Krugger himself to open up Krugger a little bit more, so he has 3 small cuts on his head now. And that's enough for the referee to call it. Oh well, what do you know? Anyway, match 1 goes to Matthew Justice. We are going right into match 2, the street fight. Krugger is buried in a pile of garbage, just all sorts of gaga. Chairs, ladder, etc. We get a table brought into the ring, and it gets in the process of slowly getting set up. Krugger finally just has enough and gets up and starts no-selling things. It's a big choke slam. We get a power bomb through the open chair by Justice. In the meanwhile, that only gets 2, so he sets up a ladder in the corner, sets up a table in the ring. We get clubbering, more clubbering, sends Krugger onto the table. The Sendai Death Squad distract Justice while he's on the ladder, climbing up the ladder for it, and when Krugger wakes up and just dumps the Sendai Death Squad guy off the ladder, which I laughed at because I love watching henchmen getting murked by their employers, and so Sendai Death guys taking swings at Justice, and Krugger's just nah, you're done. Shoves him off, falls off the ladder. So we're gonna fight on the ladder here for a hot minute before a big super play through the ladder. Krugger lands on top of Justice, and the ref counts for 3. So we are tied up 1-1 as we move into our final match of the 3 series, the ambulance match, which you can only win by putting your opponent in the ambulance and shutting the doors. And I assume they go to a local medical facility. But again, it's kind of more the same for the most part. We did get an interesting, a couple interesting spots. Justice is a cactus style clothesline over the top rope, but lands funny on an open ladder, and that could have felt good. Krugger is placed on a table, and the table just broke under Krugger's weight, which I thought that was mildly entertaining off that. But Justice, being the insane person he is, still climbs up the ladder and does a big splash onto the arena floor on top of Krugger. So that that. That was crazy go nuts. We get a dolly. Krugger's put on that and gets dumped outdoors. They were going to fight outside. Justice goes to open the ambulance door and gets a face full of mist, courtesy of Akira Kwan. Kwan just starts teeing off as Krugger gets the table, some lighter fluid, lights the table on fire. So we're going to have a flaming table spot, picks up Justice powerbomb style and dunks him through the flaming table, who just, it did well and went out just like that. Unfortunately, the table didn't break, though. But it was enough to, break Justice, and he is dumped in the ambulance, doors shut. Your winner, Mads Krugger. And this match kind of made me sad. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had such high expectations for it because the match in Chicago was so brutal, and most of this match, despite Bill Alfonso being there, was just donking Krugger on the head. And then Krugger stops selling and does a big move, and then Justice does a big high spot, and then just kind of like repeat that process over and over again. The ebb and flow of it just didn't jive, and it was just like stuck in first gear like the entirety of the match, and then it would just spike. Here's your high spot, and then back up to slow and prodding. And then it did that for basically three matches. And yeah, so it didn't do a whole lot for me, despite like this match arguably being like the match I was looking forward to the most. Following this up, we have the Featherweight Championship match as Janai Kai defends against the debuting Gigi Ray, and she is coming out with like a Spirit Halloween version of our favorite fast food breakfast sandwiches attire. So I hate her already. And like, I know this is like all coincidental and she's not like dressed specifically like him, but she dressed close enough with like the big cap and then the tight-fitting, like, athletic jacket, although hers was, like, cut off at the waist. Like, it was enough to, like, remind me of him, like, way too much, and I hate it. Because, he's not a good person. And enough on the tirade, though. So, like, it's already, like, strike one against her, so hopefully she's a decent worker, and I can kind of forget that and forgive her. And it looks to be that way. She takes advantage early, as Gigi Ray does, with strikes and a big suplex. Kai, though, quickly takes advantage with her patented kicks. Ray fires up, and they both like fight for a suplex. So like that was like nice. That looked like a real struggle, a real fight for that. However, but neither of them really get a proper hook on it, and Ray gets a roll-up, only gets 2 off of that. Michinoku Driver number 2 only gets a 2 count, followed up by the Money Shot, which is Ray's version of the Twisting Senton, only gets 2 for there too, and she is livid at that. And it's enough to drop her guard to let Kai take over, gets chucked into the turnbuckles. It looks like she's going to counter, like Ray's going to counter the first attempt of the demon kick, which she does, gets her knees up, but Kai just runs back in and obliterates her with another demon kick to get the victory and retain. And this match was short and sweet, and Ray had enough advantage. Like there was like almost the thought that, she could have pulled up the upset victory, but alas, not this time. So maybe she can get a rematch, and maybe she won't dress like a fast food breakfast sandwich, and we'll all be groovy. But otherwise, like, I really can't complain about the match. It was short and sweet, told everything it needed to do in a relatively short amount of time. Following this, we get our next and last Oprah Cup match of the evening. First round, Bobby Fish taking on the debuting Kenta. Oh, big name to come into MLW via New Japan. There is a very extended feeling out process, and no one's getting a clear advantage. They're backing each other in the ropes and trying strikes out and blocking each other. Finally, Fish gets a slingshot senton for 2, but Kenta takes over from there, working over the head and neck area. Again, they're both leveraging for suplees, with Fish getting it a couple more suplees onto Kenta before Kenta takes over with a big kick, but Bobby can kick too, so I guess that we're at a standstill off that. Just kind of trading offense back and forth. A corner clothesline and a sliding lariat only gets 2 count from Kenta. Tornado stun gun and a diving clothesline only gets 2 count as well. Gets him back and forth. 2 corner kicks by Kenta, but he misses a top rope double stomp. Not good for him. Bobby then goes up top, which I'm not sure what he's doing up there, but Kenta uses a ref shield as a distraction because the refs obviously buy off that before hitting a super play of his own. Fish counters the GTS into a roll-up. We get a super Falcon Arrow, but somehow, despite doing the deal, like, no one kicks out of the Falcon Arrow except when this happens, but it's transitioned right away into a heel hook. Kenta, though, rolls the heel hook into a pin attempt, so Fish has to let go of it. Fish hits an exploder, but Kenta feigns being unconscious, suckering Fish into the GTS to get the 3 count. This match, yeah, Kenta wins, moves on to the second round, facing Akira in the second round of the Opera Cup. But this match lasted like 20 minutes and like had more ups and downs, like in terms of like how it should have flowed than the previous match. But man, it was a match that only needed like 10 minutes. Like, they stretched out a 10-minute match into 20 minutes. Like, there was nothing like wrong functionally with it, but like there was just something not jiving with them, and like as a whole, like, it just, the pace never picked up. Like, they would do a move and look like they're speeding things up, getting into like second gear, but no, they get cut off. There was just a lot of like they traded so much offense that like really nobody had any momentum, and I think that hurt the match. That like there wasn't any proper drama to the match. It was just like, I'll do a move, you'll do a move, I'll do a move, you'll do a move, and just kind of do that. But yeah, so that was not great. And then of course, I for functional sake, that was our main event too, so blah. But I'm told that the real main event was a no rope death match for the number 1 contendership, or the Battle Riot contract, as our favorite fast food breakfast sandwich takes on Sami Callihan. And I'm told that our favorite fast food breakfast sandwich kicked out of like 92 pile drivers. At least one of them was on bare exposed ring to eventually choke, well, I guess crossface Callihan with the ropes that weren't supposed to be around the ring anyway. Got in the ring, I guess, dug the rope out, and then locked in a crossface. So yeah, I guess that was a thing too. And dude, kicking out of pile drivers makes me want to vomit. So you already have someone I'm not a fan of, and then they're kicking out of pile drivers. Sounds great. Anyway, but yeah, that's how they're ending the show, with that great load of action. So yeah, the first half of the show was really good. Like, the first, 3 matches were excellent. But basically, the baby daddy reveal, and then, everything else, not everything else after it, but most of the show, the second half, was just not that great, and just kind of was a slog to get through. Like, the Featherweight Championship match, the women's match was fine, but that was, the only shining bright spot in the second half of the show. And this, I mean, granted, what my view on this is definitely subjective, but it just did nothing for me, and it made me sad because I was looking forward to see what Kenta will do in MLW, and I was actually very much looking forward to the 3 Stages of Destruction match as well, because that is that hardcore brawling is kind of my wheelhouse, but no, it just none of those things were great, and then just add to the fact that they are really behind the famous fast food breakfast sandwich too is just blah to me. But yeah, so I'm hoping, we get a soft reset from this August 10th when they come back, and just hope for the best. I will again say that dude, they need to come up with a consistent schedule, because going every other week and then going once every 3 weeks and then now being a month apart is not good for any sort of momentum, and especially when you have a show like this that I will say a surprisingly large group of fans, because I do read some of the buzz. Some of this buzz like left very sour taste in people's mouth, and the beauty of being like every week is that you could kind of like wash that taste out pretty darn quick. But the way they've been releasing content as of late, like that bad taste is just going to stick in people's mouth for nearly a calendar month. So I'm hoping next month is better. But again, like the Okamura Atlantis, and the Jake Crist Philly Tom Lawler match, the women killed it, like etc. Like first half is a great show, and I won't take away from those folks and their sacrifices made to make this show very entertaining, or their attempts to make this show very entertaining. In the meanwhile, if disagree with me, or agree with me, just hit me up on the social medias. That'll be coming up in a bit. Stay tuned for the plugs and the best ways to help support this podcast. Got a couple of big things coming down the wire, but because life is life, I don't spoil them too much. But keep your eyes on the social media for those announcements as well. And in the meanwhile, thank you all for listening. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you all next week. MLW Confusion is a weekly podcast that's written and performed by Rob Kammer and is hosted by Spotify for podcasters. MLW Confusion is part of the Urban Wrestling Network, and you can check them out on the Underground Rundown on YouTube at Urban Wrestling NW. Background music for this section is Ruined My Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is also helpful, as word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the descriptor, but the Twitter and Instagram are at The Nova of Cass, that is TheNovaofCass, and Facebook is at MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, and etc., please check out the tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer some more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova, that is CASSONOVA, whereas for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, The False Prophet, Alexander McCarthy, and Left Tendo, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Links will be below. For business inquiries such as ads and sponsorships, please email at rzkammer, that is Kamer, at comcast.net. Thank you for listening.